Ukraine Crisis Media Center is starting its work, and today we have such an interesting format because Taras Kachka is now in Dnipropetrovsk, where he negotiates with enterprises the process of euro integration and ways to enter the European markets. Taras, can you hear us? Good day. So tell us, please, in what way is a businessman assess the euro integration, how they perceive the reforms? Do they support them? This is not the first time when we in Dnipropetrovsk speak about European markets, and the discussion has always been pragmatic and problems-oriented, and with due account of the fact that reforms, as we see this, is quite practical work. That is why we speak about some practical changes which took place after verifications, inspections of some taxes, and people are interested. They expect just regular work, but not just some presence, so to say. Thank you so much. And if to speak about reforms of the current week, what, as you see, this is important? Where have we achieved success? Please grant us some bottom line. I believe that the main news of this week is and was the beginning of quite an open and transparent work of the Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine. It has renewed its composition. There was a meeting, and quite a historical resolutions were adopted as regards of methodology to determine fines, and as regards of concentrations which were subject to control on the side of Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine. Also, if to speak about some individual cases, you may find some information within the official page of the Anti-Monopoly Committee, the procedural decisions, issues which we spoke about a lot. These very decisions were expected from business, from international community for many and many years, and there have been appropriate draft laws registered in Verkhovna Rada, and it's quite optimistic that Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine has started using these ideas, these approaches, not expecting, not waiting for adoption of definite laws, and they try to show us new quality of work. That is something that expected from all the reforms, not just approval of new norms, but new approaches in the work. That is why we will expect that Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine will show this European civilized approach to protection of economic competition. The head of the Anti-Monopoly Committee said that the researches, the studies of energy market have been launched, and I believe these researches will help us feeling to what extent the work of the Anti-Monopoly Committee change. Other important issues considered were the issues of expenditures from the state budget. The Prime Minister of Ukraine on Wednesday has approved 3 resolutions which actually set up new approach to determining those state investments which are financed from the state budget of Ukraine. And if to speak about the expenditures from the state budget, it always predetermines some capital investments, and this is the issue of efficiency of such state investments. It has always been discussed. In the spring this year, the Parliament has filed some amendments to the budget code, and during the most recent session meeting of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, 3 regulations were adopted, setting the format, and the interdepartmental committee was creating. So starting from the future period, there will be different approach. One more project which is implemented by the Ministry of Economy, that is strengthening of state procurement, and irrespective of the fact that during the previous Friday, the Verkhovna Rada failed to failed to consider to approve appropriate draft law, but I believe we are going to have the transparent system of state procurement. We speak about procurement up to 100,000 hryvnias. This very system was joined by plenty of state enterprises, the city of Kiev. So this system will start operating within the local level along with the Kiev Municipal State Administration. Also, one more important issue is that the reform is taking place not only within the level of laws, but within the level of such resolutions, decisions of departmental level. This year, the Ministry of Finances of Ukraine has approved the law which joined two codes of budget reclassification as regards of income tax and advance payments and dividends. This was a technical decision, and it has finished quite a long discussion between the State Fiscal Service of Ukraine, Ministry of Finances of Ukraine, and business as regards of regulating, settling the problem which was settled within the governmental level when the income tax approaches were changed. But there were definite problems during 2013, 2014, and this very law regulates the income tax problem. So this issue, according to its importance, is quite important. That is why for the business community, this is an important step, an important sign that for the government within the level of taxes, not only general system is important, but solution of those problems existing within the system. If we speak about taxes, we must not forget about draft law, which was approved during the previous week by Verkhovna Rada, that is draft law 2005, using new approaches to administration within the taxation system, which eases the work for taxpayers. And we will hope that President will sign this draft law, not expecting the full-fledged tax reform, which we expect in autumn. We would like the taxpayers to have the simplified approaches in their communication with the authorities of the Fiscal Service of Ukraine. It is also worth mentioning that this week there was a meeting of National Council for Reforms, and while considering the agenda, it was emphasized that the priority number one for plenty of reforms, for sectoral and in general reforms, is the reform of the taxation system. And it is obvious that in September this reform will be one of the major reforms in the agenda of Verkhovna Rada, Supreme Council of Ukraine, and it is very promising that the Ministry of Finances is discussing this reform, attracting all the industries, civil society, civil initiatives, as it was mentioned by the Deputy Minister, Ms. Makeyeva. If to speak about some other news, which do not pertain to reforms directly, but which are certain indicators of appropriate course of actions. That is microfinancial stabilization. This week, the European market has granted financial assistance to Ukraine. Also, there were some technical decisions in cooperation with International Monetary Fund, and currently new tranche on the side of International Monetary Fund is being prepared. Ukraine is continuing to use Eurobond approach. These three news are quite technical. But they mean that creditors of Ukraine, systematic creditors like European Union, International Monetary Fund, positively assess the course of reforms in Ukraine, especially pertaining to finances. Also, the Higher Chamber of Austrian Parliament has finished the ratification of the association agreement. It must only be signed by the President. That is quite a formal step left. if to compare to other European states, Austria has worked on ratification for quite a long time, and this news is good because this unprecedented speed of ratifying the association agreement is in place, and maybe in a year after signing the agreement we'll have ratification of all the parties, all the members of the European Union, which is one of the speediest processes within the European Union. And starting from January the 1st, 2016, the agreement will start working not within this temporary format, but within the full-fledged legal format, which will eliminate different issues as regards of its scope and some requirements. That is why this news is quite optimistic and constructive. And crowning it all, I would like to mention the meeting of the National Council of Reforms, where we spoke about the course of reforms, about cooperation of government and parliament, which is quite efficient. The head of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine mentioned that parliament has has considered 2044 laws, and this is quite unprecedented event. Along with this, both the President, the Parliament, as well as ministers emphasized that the work must be intensified prior to the autumn session, and there is a need to make decisions as regards of state service, because reform of state administration is priority number one, not within the network of reforms in general, but is one of the main elements which will allow implementing some decentralization projects in Ukraine and again implement the association agreement, as was mentioned. So the draft law 2490 is one of the highest priority, as was mentioned during the briefings. One more issue, which is very important, is continuing the state procurement reform, project 2007A. It is monitored by the government, by the MPs. Also one more sector, that is healthcare, was bespoken this week, and we believe it is worth to have such a reform before we start work on the budget for the next year. So I believe that the general tempo of reforms is quite speedy, so we have plenty of good news which tell us that attention to reforms in Ukraine is quite significant, and our authorities try to localize, to use this attention, and to satisfy the demand for reforms. Thank you so much, Mr. Taras. We expect you're coming back to Kyiv and we'll speak about reforms. I would like to remind you that the next session of the Council of Reforms will take place on August 24th. And I believe this will be a hot summer because we are working significantly on reforms so far. Thank you so much. And starting from Monday, the Ukraine Crisis Media Center will continue its work. Thank you so much. All the best.